At 34, I find myself a widow, something I never expected. Here I am, Dakota, at my kitchen table at 7 a.m., trying to prepare my 7-year-old son for school while suppressing tears. 8 months have passed since the construction site accident that took Mark from us, but it sometimes feels like yesterday. The initial months following Mark's passing were a haze of paperwork, tears, and sleepless nights. I honestly don't know how I would have managed without the support of my in-laws, Sarah and Jim. They've been incredible, picking Tommy up from school every day to allow me to concentrate on work. Afterward, I stop by their place to pick him up, and every time they attempt to give me money. Last week, Sarah tried again, but I declined. "Sarah, really, I can't accept this," I told her, pushing back the envelope she attempted to slip into my purse. "Dakota, sweetie, we want to help," Sarah insisted, her kind eyes meeting mine. "We understand the insurance company paid well, but let us do this for your family." Her point about the insurance is valid. The company paid out $300,000 following Mark's death. Together with my job as a marketing manager, we're financially stable. However, the gesture from Sarah and Jim isn't about money. It's about the love they show daily. I only wish my own parents were equally supportive. Mom and Dad have always favored my older sister Rachel, extending that same partiality to her children over Tommy. Last weekend was typical. Tommy was thrilled to see his grandparents, but in 20 minutes, Mom was already bothered by his questions. "Why does the clock make that sound?" Tommy asked about their antique grandfather clock. "How does it work inside?" "Dakota, can't you control him?" Mom sighed, rolling her eyes. "He's always asking questions. Rachel's kids never give us this much trouble." Dad nodded in agreement, reaching for his laptop. "Here, Tommy, play some games instead." I downloaded new ones. But Tommy wasn't interested in games. He wanted to talk, to learn, to connect. Meanwhile, Rachel's 3 kids were glued to their phones, barely acknowledging anyone, behavior my parents deemed ideal. Growing up as the less favored child, I'm used to these comparisons. Now, I simply shake my head and remain silent when they praise Rachel's parenting over mine. At least they occasionally help with Tommy, watching him during my late meetings or picking him up if Sarah and Jim are occupied. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday dinner at my parents' house, but warning signs were there from the start. Mom had prepared my favorite lasagna, which she typically does when she wants something. Dad was unusually chatty, asking about work, Tommy, everything, as if building up to something. "So, Dakota," Mom said cautiously, slicing her lasagna into precise squares. "We've been meaning to ask you about something. How much was Mark's life insurance payout?" The question hit me like a jolt. I almost choked on my water, caught off guard by such a direct question about something so personal. Maybe it was the shock, or perhaps I was just tired of keeping secrets from them, but I answered truthfully. "About $300,000, I said softly. Mom's fork clattered against her plate, and Dad's head snapped up quickly. They looked at me as if I had just revealed winning the lottery. "Well," Mom said, putting her fork down deliberately, "what are you planning to do with all that money?" The weight of their expectations bore down on me. "I've invested it," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's for Tommy's future, his college education, maybe to help him buy an apartment when he's older. Mark and I always talked about it." "But that's years away," Dad interrupted, dismissively waving his hand. "You should be thinking about the present, Dakota, about yourself and your family." The way he said family made it clear he wasn't referencing Tommy. I recognized that tone from when they assisted Rachel with her house down payment or funded her extravagant wedding. "You could do so much with that money now," Mom chimed in eagerly. "You could help your family, people who need it today, not save it all for some distant future that might not even—" "I'm not discussing my—" I abruptly cut her off, sharper than I meant, and the ensuing silence was almost deafening. Both of them leaned back, Dad's face clouded with familiar disappointment that I had seen countless times in my youth. Mom pressed her lips together in that thin, ominous line signaling trouble. The remaining dinner went by in tense silence, punctuated only by forks scraping against plates. I thought that would be the conclusion, expecting, based on past experiences, that my parents wouldn't speak to me for at least a month due to their dissatisfaction. To my astonishment, however, Mom called just a week later. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she proclaimed warmly, as if nothing had transpired, adding that Rachel and the kids would be there too, and that I simply must come. Her tone felt somehow unsettling, but I agreed. That Sunday when I arrived, Rachel was already there with her 3 kids, all engrossed with their phones as usual. As we started eating, she began to discuss how hard it was to manage with escalating prices and bills stacking up. "Everything is just so costly now," she sighed, passing the potatoes. "Your father and I scarcely have enough for a decent life anymore," Mom commented while dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, mentioning the rising grocery prices and utility bills. Rachel sat up straighter and cleared her throat. "I've been thinking," she declared, her self-righteous expression evident just as it always had been. "Dakota and I should help Mom and Dad financially. I'll contribute $500 every month. I wish I could do more, but you know Jack's the only one working and with 3 kids." She trailed off, allowing the thought to settle before directing a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes toward me. "You, Dakota, you should send them $1,000 monthly." "Excuse me," I nearly choked on my water. "Well, it makes sense," Rachel continued. "You earn well in your job and have only 1 child to support. Plus, given your situation, you have an additional income now." Her careful omission of Mark's death made my blood boil. I longed to shout that I was a widow, that my husband's income was no longer available, and that what she referred to as other income was intended for my son's future. But Mom was already clapping her hands in delight, and Dad beamed like it was Christmas. "Oh, girls," Mom exclaimed. "You have no idea what this means to us." I sat there, torn between anger and disbelief, facing my family's expectant expressions. Words of refusal died in my throat. I had spent my life trying to earn their approval, and suddenly they priced it. "Fine," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." The first transfer hurt the most, $1,000 gone with a few clicks. I convinced myself it was worth it if it ensured more family support for Tommy. Yet, that fantasy unraveled swiftly. "Mom, could you pick Tommy up from school today? Sarah has a doctor's appointment, and I have a late meeting." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," Mom's voice crackled over the phone. "I've got a terrible headache today. You know how my migraines get." This became a pattern. Every time I sought help with Tommy, there was an excuse. Mom was busy, tired, running errands, or her back was troubling her. Meanwhile, $1,000 left my account like clockwork each month. One particularly exasperating Thursday, after Mom claimed she might be coming down with something, I called Sarah in desperation. "Of course. We'll pick him up," Sarah replied without hesitation. "Jim's already heading to the school. He enjoys their little chats on the drive home. And Tommy's been telling him all about their science project." I hung up and sat at my desk, fighting back tears. The $1,000 monthly only bought me excuses for my own mother, while my mother-in-law dropped everything to help without wanting anything in return. December arrived that year. We had always celebrated Christmas at my parents' house. It was tradition. The whole family would gather, exchanging gifts, sharing meals, and creating memories. The call came exactly a week before Christmas while I was helping Tommy with his homework. My phone illuminated with Mom's number. "Dakota, honey," she started, using her syrupy sweet tone that always preceded bad news. "About Christmas Eve. We've decided on something different this year, an adults-only party. No children allowed." The pencil I held snapped in my hand. "What?" "It's just that we want a more sophisticated event this year." Mom explained, as if discussing something as mundane as changing dinner plans. She continued, "You know, wine. Adult conversations, but it's Christmas." I protested, stepping aside, so Tommy couldn't hear. "What am I supposed to do with Tommy?" "Oh, that's simple," she replied lightly. "You can leave him with Sarah and Jim. They'd love to have him. I'm sure you'll arrive around 7. After hanging up, I gazed at Tommy, completely absorbed in his math homework, unaware his grandmother had just excluded him from Christmas. My heart ached watching him focus on his multiplication tables, his tongue sticking out like Marx used to do. For the next week, I wrestled with what to do. Celebrating without Tommy seemed wrong. Yet skipping the family Christmas felt too extreme. Finally, I decided to leave Tommy with Sarah and Jim for a few hours, make an appearance at my parents' to exchange gifts, then return to celebrate with my in-laws and son. On Christmas Eve, I pulled up to my parents' house by myself, a bag of carefully wrapped presents in hand. The driveway was packed with more cars than usual for family gatherings. Approaching the front door, laughter and Christmas music flowed into the cold December air. I stepped inside, and the scene stopped me cold. The house was brimming with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, but it wasn't the crowd that stunned me. Rachel's 3 kids ran through the living room with paper crowns on, and near the tree, Linda's children helped themselves to cookies. More kids appeared in my view, Mark's twins, Susan's teenager. The room felt unbearably hot and cramped. Frozen in the doorway, gift bag limply dangling, reality hit me. This wasn't an adult-only event. It was a party where only my son was excluded. Standing there, my mind reeled. Auntie spotted me first. "Dakota, sweetheart," she exclaimed, embracing me warmly. "Where's little Tommy? Don't tell me he's sick on Christmas Eve." Before I could respond, Peter chimed in. "Yeah, where's our favorite little scientist? Jake's eager to show him his new chemistry set." More relatives gathered. Echoing the same inquiry, where was Tommy? Why was I alone? Each question felt like a dagger's twist. I couldn't articulate the truth, I didn't comprehend myself. Through the crowd, I saw my mother in the kitchen, calmly arranging cookies on a platter as if everything was perfectly fine, as though she hadn't just excluded her only grandchild from the celebration. "Excuse me," I muttered, moving past worried relatives, my footsteps on autopilot, anger swelling. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady, "can we talk privately?" Something in my tone prompted her to set down the platter. I led her into the hallway, away from nosy eyes and ears. "You told me this was an adult-only party," I stated, voice controlled. "You specifically instructed me not to bring Tommy, so why are Rachel's kids here? Why are all the cousins' children here?" Mom adjusted her sweater, avoiding my eyes. "Well, that's different," she mumbled. "Different how?" I pressed. She gestured vaguely towards the living room. "Those children know how to behave at formal gatherings. They're well-mannered." I stared, incredulous. "Well-mannered? Tommy is among the politest children I know. His teachers consistently commend his behavior. Sarah and Jim always say." "Oh, Sarah and Jim," Mom interrupted, rolling her eyes. "They spoil him, indulge all his incessant questions. The other kids deserve to be here more. They know their place." Almost on cue, chaos erupted from the dining room. Rachel's youngest, Kevin, had grabbed deviled eggs, hurling them at his sister. Eggs flew across the space, splattering on Emily's new Christmas dress as she shrieked. I turned back to my mother, raising an eyebrow. Yes, their superior manners are quite evident. Mom's expression hardened. "That's just children being children," but when Tommy asks, as I prepare to depart towards the door, I declared, "I'm heading back to my son." My mom, focused on her manicure, merely shrugged. "Fine, leave if you want to make a scene, but first, place your gifts under the tree. We'll open them after dinner." Something clicked within me as I observed her indifference. Without second-guessing, I stepped into the center of the living room. I cleared my throat, cutting through the holiday sounds. Conversations halted mid-sentence. All eyes on me. "Several of you have asked why I'm alone tonight." I began, stronger than expected. "Why isn't Tommy here for Christmas?" Rachel tried approaching, but I halted her. "Let me finish." A week ago, Mom had called me, indicating it was an adults-only party, barring my son, Tommy. "But all the children are here," Anna added, confused. "We knew nothing of a child ban," Uncle Steve affirmed, also puzzled. Mom advanced, her face flushed. "Dakota, not now." "Oh, I think now is perfect. I continued, voice escalating. There was no child ban, just a ban on one child, my son, apparently unworthy of this family's Christmas. Murmurs filled the room, shocked faces, disapproving glances aimed at my parents ensued. And the best part? I laughed emptily. Though my son is excluded, it's acceptable for my parents to receive $1,000 from me monthly, with Rachel supposedly sending $500. Rachel's husband, Jack, startled. Wait, $500? From where? Rachel's face crimson. I never sent any, she admitted. Mom and Dad had me say I did, so Dakota would help financially. Silence followed as realization set in. How my family manipulated me, excluding my child while exploiting my support. You're saying, Aunt Caroline's sharp voice rang, you conned your own daughter? Used her like an ATM while mistreating her child? That's low, even for you. Voices overlapped, some disgusted, others demanding answers. Rachel attempted to explain to an increasingly furious Jack. As my parents' facade crumbled, I raised a hand, quieting the room. I have more to say. Silence reigned as attention returned to me. From this moment, I pronounced clearly, no more money. No relationship with you or Rachel. I'm done. Without awaiting their response, I exited, leaving the gifts by the door. The sound of it shutting felt like the end of a long, overdue chapter. In my car, I accessed my bank app, swiftly canceling the transfer to my mother. It was like cutting off a burden I'd carried for months. The drive to Sarah and Jim's felt both eternal and instantaneous. Upon arrival, spotting Tommy through their window, content, decorating cookies with Sarah, tears welled. Our Christmas continued there, full of cookies, carols, and watching Tommy joyfully assist Jim. I realized then this is what family should be. The next morning, with Tommy asleep amidst his Santa gifts, my phone, when Aunt Caroline called, she immediately launched into how things concluded last night. After you left, chaos erupted, she explained. Uncle Mike stood up, announcing he couldn't stay another minute in the house. Following his lead, Aunt Marie and Uncle Steve quickly gathered their belongings. And soon everyone was collecting their coats and children. She described how the relatives departed en masse, not even pausing to bid farewell to my parents. Some had loudly criticized manipulative behaviors and family disgrace on their way out. And Jack? I inquired softly. Oh, honey. He was furious, Aunt Caroline answered. He packed up the kids on the spot and told Rachel he needed to reflect on their marriage. He decided to take the children to his parents' house for Christmas. Rachel was in tears. My parents attempting damage control, but it was too late. Dakota, know that we are all on your side. What happened to you and Tommy was unjustifiable, she said, taking a deep breath. After hanging up the phone, I sat on my bed, absorbing everything. My phone buzzed with notifications, texts from Mom, Dad, and Rachel, all variations of apologies and appeals to speak. I read their messages once, then archived them without responding. The week from Christmas to New Year's drifted by in a serene haze. Tommy and I spent quiet evenings with Sarah and Jim, playing board games, watching holiday movies, and enjoying the solace of being with those who genuinely loved us. On New Year's Eve morning, the doorbell rang, revealing through the peephole Mom and Dad on my porch, holding a large, elaborately wrapped package. My heart pounded as I considered whether to let them in. Dakota, we know you're home, Mom called out, her voice muffled through the door. Please, we just want to talk. After a moment of contemplation, I opened the door, but remained solidly in the doorway, barring their entrance. They seemed diminished, less formidable than a week prior. We brought this for Tommy, Dad announced, offering the package. The wrapping paper displayed the logo of a costly electronics store. He doesn't need it, I said coolly, not reaching for the gift. Please, Dakota. Mom stepped forward. We know we were wrong, especially with how we handled things with Tommy and the financial manipulation. This isn't about the money you were giving us, Dad quickly added. We genuinely feel awful about everything. I scrutinized their faces, searching for sincerity. Are you sorry because you realize your actions were wrong, or because the family now knows what happened and won't speak to you? They exchanged glances, and I understood their unspoken answer. I think you should leave, I stated quietly. I don't believe you or trust you anymore. But we're family, Mom protested, tears brimming. No, I countered, shaking my head. Family doesn't manipulate or exclude a child from Christmas, nor do they deceive for money. That's not family. They eventually left, still holding the unwanted gift, their apologies trailing as they walked to their car. I watched them drive away, feeling relief instead of sorrow. In the following months, I adhered to my decision, ignoring their calls and texts. Rachel tried reaching out as well, but I blocked her number. The money I once sent my parents was redirected into Tommy's college fund. Interestingly, removing toxic individuals from your life creates space for healthier relationships. Aunt Caroline began inviting us for Sunday dinners, and Uncle Mike hosted barbecues where Tommy could play with his cousins. Everyone prioritized including Tommy, showing interest in his hobbies and encouraging his questions.
Mom,
Why does Uncle Mike's pool have that funny smell? Tommy asked one summer afternoon. That's the chlorine, buddy, Uncle Mike replied before I could, diving into an explanation about water treatment and chemical reactions, captivating Tommy. I observed my son thrive under the genuine care and interest of relatives who wished to know him, not change him. He exclusively referred to Sarah and Jim as Grandma and Grandpa now, as they continued to be our pillars, our safe haven in any storm.